All right, everyone. How are you doing this fine Wednesday afternoon? It is 65 degrees in Kitsap County. It is 1:01 p.m. on this I don't know, is it poultry, sultry? Poultry would be foul, so that wouldn't be correct. Uh it is a nice day here in Kitsap County. It is Wednesday, October 19th. And you know what time it is. It is time for tipping points and puzzle pieces. So it's time to bring on our esteemed colleague here, the man who is never duplicated, tried to be imitated, but is not going to succeed. Uh, he is the originator of thought. This is Mark Boatwright-Frost. How are you doing today?
I'm doing just fine. So
We're gonna
anyway,
have a good episode for you guys today, as always. So glad that you can join us. How you doing there, Mark?
I'm doing great. I want to do a shout out to Terry, who is doing her first tea party with a group of her women friends since she was in her teens, and she's been doing the whole thing, getting it ready for this afternoon. And she's, I just want to say congratulations and have a lot of fun.
Nice. Shout out for the tea party. That sounds kind of fancy.
Yeah, tea party with real tea and like small sandwiches, not tea party like the political thing.
What kind of tea do you know?
I don't. Oh, actually, I do. I think she's doing a orange pico,
Oh,
black
really?
tea. Yeah.
Mm. All right.
Now
I'm an
you may or
Earl
may
Grey
not.
guy, like Picard.
Yeah, me too. But my daughter, until recently, worked at a local tea company, and she
Mhm.
has like an entire collection of teas. And she and I are talking about what's the best black tea to smoke ribs with.
Whoa. Okay. Never heard of smoking ribs with tea.
There was a place in Mountain View, California, off of Castro Street for anybody here who knows it, called Lucy's Tea House. It was like this little hole in the wall off of an alley off of Castro in Mountain View. And they did a lunch, and it's whatever they made that day. And
Mm.
everything that they had on the lunch plate was smoked or flavored with tea.
Okay.
They made tea eggs, which were eggs that were cooked hard boiled with tea, and they had cracks with like little lines in them of the tea coloring and the flavoring. They would do ribs smoked in different kinds of tea, and they would. I mean, this even the salad had a tea flavor to it.
I'm gonna have to take your word that it was tasty, but that does not sound delicious. But the way that you're talking about it, clearly it was.
It was fabulous, actually.
That's awesome.
So,
That's awesome. Well, I got to say, because of your daughter, I actually shop at the tea shop that she used to work at.
yep,
Nice fine selection out there.
they do. And if you've never had it, you should try the sencha green tea.
Mm,
They have
okay.
not all. They have a lot of wacky flavored senchas, but the basic traditional sencha, which is a green tea that has kind of a nutty rice, brown rice flavor to it. It's
Mhm.
fabulous. It's one of my favorite things
Wow.
to drink.
Okay. Well, why don't you tee us up today? You've got a intriguing background there today, so let's go in.
So yeah, the good, the bad, and the stupid. And let's just be honest, ugly is most often stupid. Even when it looks really pretty, all it has to do is open its mouth, and you know. Um, so the good. There's a bunch of things to go over today. So the good. Let's talk about human achievement. Let's talk about the last 50 years and technology because I want to start off on a high point. And we were talking. I was watching a YouTube video by Rick Beato with Mary Spender talking about Jim Croce's song "Operator" and how complex the music was and the lyrics. But the first thing they talked about is, would anybody today, born before 1990, even understand what the operator is, or the phone box, the phone booth? and the whole setup for the story. And so, bringing us into the idea of the good from a very short time ago, let's say the 1980s to today, we have gone from phone booths and phones in our home to carrying computers in our hands that communicate with each other like Star Trek envisioned in 1963. We have done some amazing things, but incrementally. They seem like huge advancements, but once the initial technology has been found, everything else is incremental. Hold on just a second. I forgot to turn off my phone.
That's a bit exciting.
Sorry. Um, well, I got to tell you, no one else has that ringtone in a store, so I always know it's me. Um, so anyway, so the changes have been incremental. We've talked about this before. We drive around in 100-year-old technology with new fenders and new paint jobs. And essentially, we haven't made a huge shift. So let's go to the bad a little bit. We have corporations who want to make a profit. Fair enough. But they want to make the profit without having to make any investments in moving things forward because it maximizes the profit for the shareholders. Okay, fair enough again. But when we have a climate crisis that requires us to shift off of fossil fuels and to find new ways to do things, and they spend millions and millions and millions of dollars to crush any movement toward that would minimize their profits until all of the fuel is gone and we're too far past it. That goes into the stupid, right? Because when we go down, we all go down together, and that goes back to math. So we've talked about math a lot, and so I want to kind of have you guys close your eyes, and we're just going to do a visualization here. So we have two lines of 50 people facing each other. So the total of 100 people. 80 of those people aren't even aware there's a problem, or they are aware or marginally aware there's a problem, but they think somebody else is going to fix it for them. But you don't know who those 80 people are. And more importantly, you don't know who the 20 people are who are going to realize there's a problem and be willing to do something about it, but feel alone and isolated and can't. So you have two lines of people, 50 people facing each other, and we have to determine which of those people understand there's a problem and which of those people have an idea there's a problem and which of those people don't think there's a problem at all. So we're going to break that down a little bit farther. Out of those, so let's say that the we ask the question and say, do you think there is a huge problem in our future and for our children? Which of you believe this? Raise your hand. And 26 people raise their hand. So you ask a second question. And you say, so how many of you think that somebody is going to do this for you and fix the problem for you? And 6 people raise their hand. So we know who the 20 people are now. We have them go off and sit down and have coffee and talk to each other, give them whiteboards and tools and let them start working. So you have 80 people facing each other. And we know that 6 of those people understand that there's a problem, but they think somebody else is going to fix it. And then we have 74 people that are facing each other. We don't know where they are at the moment. So we have, let's say, 10 of those people are fairly attractive, personable, charismatic people. And they each, 5 of them believe that, 5 believe that if we are more socially focused and focus on education and we focus on social services for people and helping people have a leg up, that we will find the person who's going to solve the problem. So we know those people, and they're going to try and lead the other 74 people. The other five people think that there needs to be somebody in charge to fix everything, and that people will, figure out how to do it on their own, and the problem will be solved because of doing what we've done before. And they are going to try and lead the other 74 people, or in this case, 64 people. So now we have a dynamic of our world. We have people who are leading, but may understand there's a problem, but figure that the system will fix the problem. We have 64 people that aren't even aware there's a problem or might be a little bit aware of the problem, and they'll lead toward the people who are trying to lead them out of this one way or the other. Now, the majority of those people, let's say 64, so we got 32 more people. So let's say 40 of those people think that it is going to be a social movement that's going to solve the problem. So they're going to lean with the five people, and they're going to go off and try and fix that. And the others think that somebody needs to lead them, and that we need to fix the problem by having a strong leader that will tell us what to do. And that pretty much is a model of the world. Those people, so out of 100 people, 80 people are going to be those folks. They're going to be doing the things that normally done. They're not bad people. They're not stupid people. They're just people who have been taught by the system that everything will be taken care of by somebody else, or and that the system will fix the problems. Now we're going to go to a very overused statement. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different outcome. Washington State has gone, I don't know exactly the record right now, but I think we're very close if we haven't smashed the record for days without rain. Why is this a problem? In Kitsap County, where we live, we are dependent on aquifers and reservoirs and surface water. That is recharged by rain and rainfall. So we haven't had rain in a lot of days, or real rain. We might have had some mist, but nothing significant. We might be in trouble. And so you ask the question about where's our water table? And you have a lot of people shrugging their shoulders and saying, well, somebody else has the answer. And then you ask around and nobody seems to have the answer. We're looking at bringing, I think the last estimate was 100,000 more people in here in the next 5 years to grow us into whatever the model of Kitsap's vision of growth is going to be. I'd have to say that we need to know where our water table is before we bring more people in. That's kind of a given, but we aren't. We're just going to keep moving forward and developing and moving forward. And we end up with a situation where people aren't thriving because of we didn't do the homework. We didn't look at the water tables. We didn't understand what our resources are doing. We're in a situation, again, to give you another example of it, where rents are going up. And I've just been doing a lot of research. Our rent is, by the way, I don't know if you know this, our rent is going up 250 some odd dollars. And we're in federally subsidized housing where I live.
It's going up
So
$150?
250.
250? Wow. Wow.
And
Okay.
we're in subsidized housing. So I'm trying to find out from the people we work with if that's even legitimate or not. And I started doing some research. And because of COVID and everything else, things were put on hold. But HUD is allowing a 16.3 increase to housing rents. And I'm like going, really? And where's our federal government, the ones who are supposed to fix these problems? Where are they with this in an election year?
If your rent was 1,000, I'm assuming it's more than that. 10%
Yeah,
would be 100. So for it to be a 250 rent increase,
it's
when you're talking
24%.
about, holy crap. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's like Yeah, how is that even possible? And the thing is that they quote market value. Let's talk about that
Mhm.
for a minute. I don't know if you watched the John Stewart segment on rent that I put up.
I did not.
Um, but a couple things happened. There's one really offensive part in there where a private equity firm who is buying property management and property all over the country said, "This is a rare opportunity for us to absolutely get rich.
Mm,
So let's raise rents." What's really going on here is the private equity, and actually Robert Reich also has a post on this. There's actually lots and lots and lots about this. Private equity is buying up property and rental properties in the United States, and they are jacking the rents up and creating an artificial market value so they can continue to jack the rents up. They're manipulating and working the system. There's no protections for this. By the way, I don't know if you know this, but Washington State, it's illegal to have rent control. It
right.
is a state a law, is it, that makes rent control illegal? And I'm like going, who thought that was a good idea, and how did that get through? And
Well,
so,
the counter to that is, I believe there's a rent control in New York. I'll try to find the article while you're speaking. But the powers that be, the capitalists that we are, find a way to manipulate rent control spaces, and it ends up sometimes being worse off than not having rent controls at all. So it's it's kind of like you love the Constitution yourself, right? You're a
mhm.
constitutionalist. And, there's good parts in, the Constitution or in whatever these policies are. It's when people try to find these workarounds and manipulate the system, uh, is what I believe is when it all goes bad.
Right, and but we also are supposed to have a representative government that fixes those problems in the Constitution by creating laws or amendments to the Constitution, which we haven't done in a very long time. So that means we don't have any problems that we need to address, right? Or we have a whole bunch of people owned by corporations who don't have no interest in changing the Constitution because they're helping with the workarounds that are being put forth.
Touche.
So yeah. So back to the piece of this. All right. So now I'm going to talk about, and I'm just going to be blatant here. I'm going to talk about the stupid, and whether it's me or not is up to you after you hear this. And I don't, really care. But basically, stupid to me is putting your head in the sand, your butt in the air, and maybe painting a sign on the back saying "kick me," because that's essentially what's happening here. Short sightedness is epidemic amongst the people with money.
Mm,
So let's say the private equity folks are buying up rental properties and they're jacking the price up. Let's take this a little farther. Okay. We have a shrinking number of people with money in this country. We are in a recession. We have inflation. All of the signs are there, but no one's putting the pieces together, at least not publicly, and the media are not being responsible about it. Not that they have been for 30 or 40 years, but we have a situation where we have a shrinking number of people that have resources. We have a shrinking number of jobs, and we have an exponentially shrinking number of jobs that pay enough to live. We have seen this again, and I have personally seen this again and again. It doesn't take very far for you to see it, that people are being priced out of the areas where they work. And those areas that they move to are being priced out, and they're moving out. And then prices moved out and manipulated, and market value goes up. Salaries aren't going up. Minimum wage isn't going up. Jobs aren't becoming suddenly available. So, what happens to all the properties when there's nobody to rent them? At some point, that line's going to get crossed. Your prices are going to be too high, and nobody's going to be able to rent the spaces, and there's not going to be any, and suddenly there's not going to be any cash flow going up. This is where everything crashes. That's what the term of a crash is. And the people who are jacking rents up to get money now are suddenly not going to have any income. Now, granted, they'll have income so they can find some other market, but what if all of the markets start crashing because we have taken all of the resources and moved them to the top and there's no customer base?
I'm just holding my tongue.
Go for it. Let's
You
get
know
this.
how I feel about this.
Huh?
I said, you know how I feel about this. I'm very frustrated and angry at the fact that, again, charity starts at home. And I know we consider ourselves the world police, but we have some pressing issues here. We're at about what, 70 billion right now to Ukraine.
Hmm.
And we're dealing with folks that are starving and food insecure,
And
unhoused,
homeless.
you
Yep.
know, health issues, right? They don't have a livable wage. We're not taking care of our elderly. It's our educational system is in disarray. Our pipeline to prison complexes, everything is just so backwards right now, and we're so polarized, and we're so divided that it's like this distraction, right? That no one can seem to see, right? So while I'm fighting you, the money just continues to flow up to the top, and or we're not even paying attention to it. And we just get used to a new low, right? It's like, well, I can't put gas and I can't fill my tank up anymore. I can only put $20 in. Oh, I can only put 10 in. Oh, I can't go here. Oh, I can't, we're not going out to eat as much. I know these are luxuries, right?
At all.
Um, we're not eating as much, in regards to what we're preparing, right? Sorry, there's no seconds. I know you're still hungry, but no, there's not that. We should be grateful for having something to eat, but again, our quality of life is eroding slowly, and we're going along with it because we're in survival mode, right?
Not
And
so
so
slowly.
well, yeah, not so slowly, but you have people like yourself that are sounding the alarm and saying, "Hey, guys, we have to collectively come together and do something." But every conversation is been so polarized that you can't. So either you're in the choir, right, and you're fighting against the man, and you're saying, change the system, but then you're trying to argue your point against the other side, who's arguing whatever they're arguing for, and a lot of times you're saying the same thing, but in different ways. And
Hmm.
by the time we actually decide to do something, what are we going to do? We have Ian. We've got the situation in Puerto Rico. I was going to ask you about the convergence of weather right now. We've got our middle states and the southern states that are in a freeze, record freezing here in October, and then we have our heat here, and they're saying that that's going to cause some issues. Like, is no one paying attention? So a
Yeah.
natural disaster, what are people going to do? Because the
Let's
resources
talk.
are gone.
Yeah. Let's go back to the fact that we haven't had rain in about 150 some odd days.
Yeah, all in the smoke, right?
And then the smoke, which has been going on and on and on. I'm praying for Friday when the rain comes and washes the smoke out of the sky because it's been a miserable 4 days for me. Um, sore throats, red eyes every day.
Hmm.
And it's not like I can't go outside because I have to for the work that I do and where I need to be. So yeah, it's and the fires are not usually endemic of Washington State because we have rain. Those people who think we always have water should start getting nervous. Start getting really nervous. Those people in Kitsap County should be demanding to know if our water is secure and what our water tables are doing.
Yeah.
Um, climate change is here. In 2015, ASDA, a wholly owned subsidiary of Walmart in the UK, the largest grocer in the United Kingdom, did a sustainability study. And they discovered that 95, and I'm going to go back and say 95% of all of their food was at risk due to climate change in the next decade or two.
Mm.
Costco spent $50 million 2 or 3 years ago to shore up their supply chain. The Southwest is in such significant drought that they cannot sustain themselves and they don't have water. And the federal government actually had to step in and set restrictions on them because they wouldn't do it themselves because they would have to go up against developers wanting to put in golf courses. the call. Okay. I'm going to be snarky here, and I try really hard not to be, but this is the moment for me. The Colorado River has not reached the Mexican border in 40 years because we've been pumping water off right, left, and down the middle until it's 100 miles shy of the Mexican border.
Mm.
And just think about that for a minute. We have pulled the water of the Colorado River so much that it does not reach the Mexican border by 100 miles. We have been developing communities in the desert. Think about that for a minute. We are developing communities in the desert. We have golf courses in the desert. Just kind of, places where it's inhospitable for people to live because there is no water. I heard a long time ago the saying, it said, intelligence is knowing what you can do and doing it. Wisdom is knowing if you should do it. Now, I get that we need places for people to live because, as I've said before in this program, when I was born, there was 2.6 billion people on the planet, and there's now close to 8 billion people. We probably have gone from, 100 million people to 300 and plus 323 million people in this country. People need a place to live. And I get that, but really, the desert's the best option? So, I think that when I talk about the good, the bad, and the stupid, the good is we have developed technology that can solve a lot of the problems. The bad is we are in a capitalist society where corporations have the run of the government and everything else, and profit is the key to that, not innovation, nor is adoption. I've been doing this for 2 decades, and I will tell you there are technologies out there that if we adopted them, we can solve 75% of the problems right off the bat. But we won't adopt it because it's not profitable to the corporations. So, you want to know the solution to all this? We
Well,
come
before you give us
together.
the
Oh,
solution, there's one other thing that I wanted to share,
yeah,
and being someone who has some health issues, quite a few, right? Comorbidities. Um, I have folks that are needing to go and use our medical facilities, and I don't know if you've seen this article from the Sun from the 12th, right? Faced with overwhelmed ER, a St. Michael Medical Center nurse called 911 for help. This is terrifying to me. We are not post COVID, but we're out of the crisis time. And right now, we should have learned from going through the crisis, but yet there isn't enough staff on duty to support the people that are there, right? The charge nurse expressed 2 times they felt like they were drowning because they had over 45 patients in the waiting room and only 5 nurses. We're in dire straits. We're in need of fire department help. Now, there is conversation of a new strain of COVID that I don't think is hit here yet, but that's concerning. And there's already been conversation about this is going to be a worse, a pretty bad flu and COVID season. So they just, I believe, got their computers back up. So I don't know if you realize they experienced,
I did.
yeah.
I
So one
actually
of
had a conversation with folks about having to go to the emergency room 3 times and not having their records being able to be pulled up and not being able to be treated because of it.
well, imagine this. Imagine taking your school age son to the ER because he can't breathe, playing football with cracked ribs, and you get an X-ray, but they can't read the X-ray, and they send him home. That's terrifying. It's like, don't get sick right now. Don't get hurt. Be very careful. So as the winter comes, if we do have a spike in COVID, if we do have Cascadia Rising, they can't handle just day to day, not just a regular day in the life for the hospital right now. what is gonna
Yeah.
happen if that like, this is terrifying to me, Mark.
Well, yeah, and wow. I'm gonna I'm gonna put a pin in that one, Marwan,
Okay.
because I know far too much about what's gone on with St. Michael's from the beginning and their philosophy and a lot of other things. And we can get really political and we can get really granular into this situation. As a matter of fact, that might be a good topic for number 40. And let's talk about healthcare here. I'm going to put a pin in it, but it's like a lot of things. I've been doing this for a very long time and I have a lot of information on stuff that I don't tend to share very much because it's bad enough I have to carry it. I don't want to share it with other people to carry it. We're trying to stay positive and effective. But I will say one thing about that, a general statement about that.
Mhm.
We are the only industrialized country in the world, not to mention the richest country in the world. And we're the only one without universal health care.
Mm.
Think about that for just a second. We can't take care of our people for you to make sure that they have health care.
Mhm.
It sounds like we're starting to make some headway toward education. And I think Illinois just stepped up to the plate to do universal basic income and start that on a large scale process. But we aren't taking care of our people, and we have done a lot of heinous things. We being the government, the corporations, the collusion going on, that have taken away resources from people as we get more and more people. Because God forbid we slow down our population by not having 12 children. Um, God, I am going to get political and
Well,
today.
Mark, it's not just here. My oldest friend is, an ER, nurse in this same, uh, in I guess it's St. Michael's, right? They own
Yeah.
or Franciscan, whatever it is, and he's in a different city here in Washington, and he's saying, one, there were, paper pencil just like everywhere else. It wasn't unique to just Kitsap County, but also he's saying he is seeing a rise of COVID patients that are needing ventilation, right? This is a scary thought. It's like you have to pay attention to what's happening, the precursor to the
All
emergency.
right, I'm gonna
Go ahead.
step on this one a little bit. The other issue with St. Michael's is it's a Catholic hospital. While we don't have a legislature that has passed an anti-abortion law or rules or whatever the stupid stuff they're doing in the South is, for the people who want to control other people's lives and bodies, we have a passive way of making that happen by having a monopoly of a Catholic hospital here. Enough said.
Oh, that was mild. I thought you were really going in. I gave you the whole camera and everything.
Yeah, no, I'm just going to simply say, when you have a Catholic hospital, you live by the Catholic rules. Doesn't have to be an overt anti-abortion move. It can just be as simple as having a monopoly with the Catholic hospital.
Well, as you're giving your solutions, Mark, I think we're overdue to do a preparedness show. We haven't done
Yep,
one of those since almost the beginning.
yep.
We've got to empower people to take care of themselves and their community around them.
Okay, so how about let's see, the next one's going to be 37. Why don't we call that one the black bag?
Oh, the black bag. All right. I like it.
And we will put
How
together
about the
and we
blue
will put
bag? Because
together.
our go bag is blue, the one that we purchased when we were going to go out and record.
Okay, the blue bag.
Oh.
No, we'll just call it the go bag.
The go bag? Okay. All
The
right,
go bag.
Gibbs.
Yep.
Grab your go bag for all you
Let's go.
NCIS fans out there.
You betcha. Even the new one, I'm kind of getting used to Parker. For those of you who don't follow NCIS, well, that's a not that's
Neither here nor
a
there.
digression. Neither here nor there. Digression. All right. So the solution, and yeah, we have divisiveness, and I will tell you that the solution in Kitsap County will start on October 29th at 1
Mm,
p.m. at the Sylvan Way Library. We will be starting our next community grassroots workshop, and it will be an hour and a half from 1 until 2:30, and it will be don't come expecting a lecture. Don't come expecting to be entertained. Come prepared to roll up your sleeves, because we're going to be talking about how to connect to people, how to overcome cognitive dissonance, how to deal with the divisiveness and the fear. And we're going to talk about goals of creating grassroots networks to push priorities based on our humanity, not our politics, not our religion, not and just how to get things done by building grassroots networks.
Can you
And
give
that's where
me
our
the
focus is
time
going to
and
be.
date again?
It is going to be at 1 p.m. At Sylvan Way on
So,
October 29th. Sylvan Way Library on October 29th.
and what are we calling this?
Hold on, and I will tell you. I changed the name so many times it's not funny, but because you're trying to find a way to say it that people can hear.
Hmm.
And how to change the world 101. If you go on the Kitsap Resiliency Project page, you will see an event with that name, and you can say you're going to go and let us know that you're going to be there. But if you do that, please show up.
So, do you want folks to RSVP?
Yes, please. So we know how many people are there, because we may have to cut it if we get many more people that are interested converting to going. We may be full up. I will happily say that we have most of our board going to be showing up there to take the workshops. And this is the first one. The next one will be 2 weeks after that, and it will be at downtown Bremerton for the next several. And it will be on Saturdays as well, except we will be doing it at 11:30.
And let me find our Facebook page here. All right, so that is down in the ticker. I will put our Facebook page up shortly as Mark
Okay.
continues to give us the solutions.
So we have to come together, but that, as Marwan has pointed out, that's not easy. Um, the fear we have pumped at us 24/7 about and the othering and all of the combined pieces of that, the fact that we have our nose to the grindstone 24/7 trying to just survive. Life is not easy, and it's not going to get easier. It's going to get worse. There are going to be food shortages. There's going to be climate issues. There's going to be all kinds of things. We can fix these problems. The good, remember the good, we have growth centers, we have the technology. We need to create the will to make it happen. And we can do that together. That's the only way it's going to happen. You can go out and protest once and you feel great about yourself and you did something, but it's a sustained campaign of people working for the same goal that is going to create change. It's the only thing that ever has. If you don't believe me, read history. It's the only thing that ever has. So we are setting up a workshop to teach you how to do it. We are showing you how to come together and determine amongst yourselves what the priorities are
Mm.
based on humanity, based on our humanness. We are giving opportunities to take a look at problems in a different way, to gain perspective, to meet other people and maybe create friendships. Excuse me a second. Ah, sneeze died. Um, this is what we do. This is what the Resilient Ecosystems Kitsap Resiliency Project model is all about. You own the project, but we will help you facilitate the relationships, gain the knowledge, roll up your sleeves, and start moving forward. We do have some projects that we would like to see off the ground that are focused on things that are desperately needed, like food for all, being able to create grow centers here for a growing market that can create up to 1,000 jobs here in Kitsap County around food production. So if something like Cascadia Rising happens, or food shortages because California's crops fail, or other crops fail, we have food growing here so we can feed people. I mean, we kind of think that's important. Water for all, finding out what's going on with our water tables, understanding that, and starting to make things make sense. And together we can go to the politicians who are wanting to develop the entire county. And, development's not necessarily bad, but planned development, thought development is far better for everybody. So we need to know whether we have the water to support another 100,000 people. Because quite honestly, I lived in California when we had bricks in the toilets and we're flushing 3 or 4 times, and I'm not sure any of us want to do that.
You had what in the toilet?
We put bricks in the toilet in the toilet bowls so
Why
that we
brick?
would have less water. Yeah, so it would take up water space where water would hold, so you'd have less water flushing the toilet.
Wow.
And then you'd leave if you urinated in the toilet, you would leave it 2 or 3 times before you flushed, and flush only every 2 or 3 times. The only time that you would um, flush the toilet was when you had solids, and then you would use recycled water or gray water to wash it down.
Wow.
This was in the 70s in droughts in California. This is not. This is in my lifetime, and it's happened again in Northern California. Started doing it because all their water is being shipped to Southern California. Again, a desert with an intense population.
Well, that's another fear that I have is for those that haven't lived through that, uh, it's going to get really difficult for a lot of people, right? We don't know how to live off the land. We don't know how to grow. We just don't have those skills because we haven't needed them, you know?
Yep. And
And unfortunately, when it hits, it's going to be too late. you, hey, let's start growing now that the emergencies happen. Too late.
yeah,
Should have already been doing it.
the picture I put up not too long ago of the woman with the hands on the face saying, "Why didn't somebody tell me?" Well, folks, Marwan and I are telling you, it's coming, and we can do something about it, but we have to do it together because otherwise, it's not going to happen. Networks, social networks, and I'm not talking about Facebook. I'm talking about people in social networks coming together and driving change. I will tell you that everybody goes to their politician and says, "We need blah XYZ whatever," but you're just one person. If if 1,000 of you decide, 1,000 people come together and decide that this has to change because all of our lives will be better because of this, and we'll be able to drink the water next year. We'll be able to
And
have
depend
food
on it,
from a
right?
huh? I'm sorry, what was that?
It's not even necessary your lives will be better. It's your life might depend on it. you
Exactly.
know?
But if 1,000 people go to the politician's going to listen, because in Kitsap County, 1,000 people can turn an election. A
Yeah,
thousand people can change everything.
I wanted to share um, one of the things that we're doing, right? So I'm just going to zoom in here. This is today. So this is to help us recycle our oil. And so this is a food safe bucket here. And so now we can strain our cooking oil in here, get all the impurities and stuff out, and get multiple uses out of it. But we're also going to be filling these full of rice and other things so the little nasties don't get in there and that we can preserve, right? I've been active in switching my fruits from frozen, my vegetables and my fruits from frozen to canned. And because, I can open a can with no power, right? And so these are just some of the things that I'm, trying to put into place so that we're ready just in case. And you can do these things a little bit at a time, right? So my intent is to have several of these buckets. I want to be good for at least 90 days at least. I
Okay,
do it a little
so
bit at a time.
as you bring that up, one of the foundations of the grow centers was the issue, as I've mentioned before, in Chihuahua, Mexico, where they lost 80% of their agriculture due to desertification. And one of the things we recommended to them, along with the grow centers, was to use anaerobic digestion, which is a basically an incineration process, but it can
Mm,
also be a chemical incineration process to create biochar to help create nutrients in the earth, to reestablish the earth and make it more healthy for growth. It can do soil amendments. You can use the ash in construction. There's a lot of things you can do with it. But the better materials you put into it, the better materials you get out of it. And one of the things that we suggested is that they take. Okay, yeah, I'll have to tell that story to go with this. Okay, so Rosarita, Mexico, which is just south of Tijuana, on your way to Ensenada on the Baja Peninsula. Uh, Former President Donald Trump has a oceanfront resort there that he built for people in his development stages. And just behind that resort, on the other side of the freeway, uphill is a mesa, flat top mountain for those of you who aren't familiar with mesas. And on that mesa is a lagoon, a very large mini acre lagoon. And that's where they dump all the biosolids from the wastewater treatment plants for like 100 miles all the way around. And biosolids, let's be honest, it's just shit. So they're the solids that are left over after wastewater treatment get dumped in this lagoon. And we proved a fact that shit rolls downhill because the lagoon has been used for so long without anything to do with it except keep dumping truck after truck after truck there, that it has created a flow down through the resort into the Pacific Ocean. This is not uncommon in Mexico, and it's actually not all that uncommon here. It's like, we have the biosolids afterwards, but there's nothing really to do with them, so we store them in lagoons. So if you do anaerobic digestion, you can take the organic waste left over from the grow centers. You can take the biosolids left over from wastewater treatment. You can take oils and greases from the restaurants and the houses around the area, and you can put them all in the anaerobic digester, heat it up, create power, create steam and heat, create biosolids, and I'll do it in a sealed environment so the carbon doesn't release to the atmosphere and you don't raise pollution at all or carbon output. That technology has been around for 30 years. And it can be applied anywhere except that we don't go there because it competes against waste management and the people selling wastewater treatment plants that are all antiquated in technology. And, nobody wants to do anything new because it costs money. I don't know if you saw the Josh Farley piece about PSE getting ready to raise all of our rates. Rather a lot, double digits, I think is what it said. Because they are going to have to make investments in the grid, which they've been putting off since the 1960s when the grid was put in.
Well, that doesn't surprise me. I figured with what's going on with Ukraine and Russia, that was going to raise our prices also.
Yeah, as I say, we're going to they're going to have to upgrade the grid, and this is what's going on. So why don't we just, instead of paying double digits to PSE and bringing our power in from somewhere else, why don't we just start following Germany's model and putting solar panels on all the roofs here and creating microgrids in the communities and creating our own power and having a real public utility district like KPUD maybe manage the infrastructure, and we pay them for infrastructure, but we're generating our own power. Doesn't that make sense? So that's another project that we're pushing, but we need people to come together and talk about how, be willing to be open to talking about how we can have more security, more jobs, and a much better life by doing these very simple things, but we have to push it to happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
And actually, we're in an hour. Oh, no, not quite an hour. Okay. I was thinking we're going to run out of time really quickly. We should probably start wrapping up to some points. So the good is we have the technology to overcome a lot of this. The bad is we're not adopting it. The stupid is if we don't adopt it, we're this guy. So if you're one of the 80%, Get into the 20%. Start understanding there's a problem. Start understanding that we need to actually find ways to solve the problem and connect up with people who are already working to solve the problem. And actually, Stephanie and I were talking this morning, and I was talking to, I can't remember who I was talking to yesterday, but I was basically saying, I applaud everybody who is working on problems that exist today. Everyone. If you're working on homelessness, if you're working on feeding people, if you're working on racism, if you're working on sexism and
Yeah, misandry.
income inequality and everything else, misandry,
Mhm.
and all the rest of it, awesome. Other people who aren't doing that need to find people who are doing that and join them, because those things need to be dealt with. We need to be facing it off. But understand those are symptoms of a cancer we have, that is our culture, that has allowed us to create the problems that continue. All of the things Marwan was saying earlier about our divisiveness, our anger, these are just symptoms of a cancer that we need to cure. And resilient ecosystems and all the things we're talking about are teaching you how to cure the cancer.
Mhm.
But we have to continue to treat the symptoms. Otherwise, we won't be around long enough to cure the cancer.
Facts. 100%. This is a good time for me to talk about some of the solutions,
Yeah,
at least the solutions that I'm doing.
yeah,
I
please.
say we're doing. So in the chat, um, this next Wednesday, we are going to have our meeting, right? It's our pancake breakfast. It's going to be a workshop, pretty much kind of our last main one in this series before we go into climate and things like that. And we are going to address what's going on downtown on ML King and advocate for bathrooms and services down there. Now, how do these things go together? I love what Mark was saying about, you could be working on this or you could be working on that or you could be working on that. I'm working on multiple things, right? And so we have the power to get people together. We have the power to feed people and facilitate a discussion. And so that's what we're doing. The other thing that we can do is we have city council tonight and it is budget time. So if you can, tune in to City Council. Tonight is their first hybrid meeting. So you can go in person to the Norm Dix building, or you can do an open comment at on Zoom and let them know, hey, there's some surplus of money and where you would like to see that money go. Doesn't have to be for ML King, but that's your advocacy work, right? That's you using your voice to build community and to build relationship. So it doesn't have to be what I'm advocating for or champion. Just as long as you're advocating for something. Right after this program, in about 6 minutes, we have the Kitsap Housing and Homeless Coalition. So if you want to tune into that, you will see all the organizations that are coming together to try to have those conversations and solve some of these issues surrounding unaffordable housing and homelessness. So that's just a few of the things that G2 is doing. Resilient ecosystems. We all do these things, and then again, as Mark was saying, the first class is going to be October 29th, right, at the
Yep.
Sylvan Way Library, 1 p.m. to 2:30 p.m. And he's asking, please do RSVP and come and be a part of the conversation. I think it's a lot easier to do the hard work if you know who each other is and you kind of build that relationship, right?
Yep.
Because then the way that Mark and I demonstrate on this show every week, most weeks we don't have conflict in how we think, but sometimes we are divergent, right?
Hmm.
But we can still maintain respect for one another and still know that we're still going in the same direction, right? So understand sometimes you can't skip the steps. Yes, we're in a hurry, we're behind the times, but we don't know how to be in a relationship with each other. So this is that opportunity you're going to be getting. It's like the Karate Kid, right? Wax on, wax off. Why am I doing this, right? And then at the end, he has all these skills. You have to build that relationship skill. You have to build that communication skill. You need to build that skill of how do I navigate tough conversations and still be respectful, have my part heard, be able to actually listen, have the ability to maybe change my mind with new information as it comes in, get out of the echo chamber, maybe add to your own opinion, right? And so you may still feel the way that you feel, but adding something in might modify that a little bit, right? And bring you a
Mhm.
little bit more toward the center. But those things have to be worked on, and this is the space to do that. So we encourage you to join and be a part of that and help, really embody we the people. All right, Mark, that was my soapbox.
I agree with you completely. It's about wax on and wax off, man. It's about doing the work, and we need to relearn how to do it. Have to unlearn and relearn a lot of things. And first, you got to know that there's a problem. So the very first thing we focus on, and we focus on every class after that, every workshop after that, is perspective,
Mhm.
because perspective informs perception. How you see things is based on how much you can see.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, one quick thing, there's like 4 minutes left. I may have talked on here that the Black community here in Kitsap is working on navigating their own issues within ourselves and restoring and doing some restorative work and reconciliation. And in that, I found myself at the center of some issues and drama. And so, it's kind of one of those things, no good deed goes unpunished, right? So, even when you have the best of intent, um, and you believe that something isn't going to offend someone else, it still may, right? And so you have to step back from that, have the emotional intelligence. You're not the one who's been upset by it. So understand that they are triggered by whatever the situation is and they only have the information that they have. And so you could respond with that in kind, and then you're not going to get anywhere. And then it's just going to be divisive, right? And then that's just another kind of a death by a thousand cuts in that particular relationship. Or you could say, you know what? Clearly, they don't have all the information. They don't have all the facts. Let them vent and do whatever. Establish that communication and work through that. So looks like that's why I wasn't on camera earlier, because I was actually dealing with that in live time, right? And so it looks like that got resolved. Shout out to Deborah; she's in Chicago, helping to resolve that and do those things. But that's part of it. And we talked about when we were doing the workshop last year about having a social contract. And I think that's important because if there is a disagreement, or even how are we gonna do the work, right? We don't even disagree yet. We're all gonna plant this field, right? That's what we're gonna do. We have no disagreement yet. Now we're gonna try to figure it out. How are we gonna go forward? What do we do if we have conflict? What do we do if we have any challenges or hurdles that we have to overcome? How are we going to celebrate the wins, right? All of those things need to be established. And if everyone agrees to follow those ground rules, we'll be so much better off and we'll get so much further faster. And we don't have time. We've got to move fast.
Yep. And I will give you ground rule number one:
I'm ready.
understand intent. Understand intent.
Mm,
We, all of us, knee jerk because we think the person is saying one thing when their intent is not that at all.
yeah.
And we have to understand that, did that person really say that thinking that they're saying that about me? Was that in their intent? And so it can be diffused really quickly by saying, was it your intent to say this because that's what I heard?
Hmm.
And say it kindly, because you can get into a conversation that'll take you to a whole different place and build a relationship.
I love that as the final word. We've got about 10 seconds before our next program starts for Kitsap Housing and Homeless Division. Please come on over and follow us there so that you understand what's going on. Another thing is to be in the know, right? So a lot of times people have really great ideas and the city should do this and this organization should do that. And maybe they've tried those things and they don't work now, but you don't know that. And you may be looking at it as, why aren't they doing that? So this is being part of the solution. So for
Yep.
Mark, I am Marwan. This is Tipping Points and Puzzle Pieces. This is the best hour of your week, and we will see you next Wednesday.